Hello, my name is Lindsay Handy, and this is my AEP 856 Module 5 assignment, Understanding My Community, Smith Elementary. I work at Smith Elementary as a first grade teacher, and Smith is located in North Park Hill, which is a neighborhood in the Denver metro area. Like I mentioned, Smith is located in North Park Hill, and North Park Hill, it was one of the first suburbs of Denver, and it's extremely racially diverse. It's probably one of the most racially diverse areas in the Denver metro area. It has an extremely diverse blend of backgrounds due to a neighborhood integration in the 1960s. And just like the population, the housing style is extremely diverse as well. You can drive down the street and see apartments or, old houses, new builds, just a gazillion different styles, which is I thought was really interesting and unique to the area. North Park Hill is known for promoting tolerance and diversity because of the integration. Here are some traditions at Smith Elementary. We have a fall festival that's pretty big every single year. We also have a Halloween parade. I would say that it gets more of a turnout than parent-teacher conferences and meet the teacher night and our learning celebrations and everything else. Our Halloween parade is a big to-do in our neighborhood. We also have an annual MLK Parade, which is like a march/parade, where we take our students to the Montview Presbyterian Church, and they actually march there to kind of symbolize the Martin Luther King movement and basically everything that went along with that. And the students learn a whole lot, and they absolutely love it. And it happens rain, shine, snow. This year, in fact, it was snowing while we were doing it, and they stand on the steps of the Montview Presbyterian Church and sing "We Shall Overcome." So it's a really important tradition to our area. We also have a spring learning celebration where parents come out and get to see just some different things that the students have been working on throughout the year. We also have a big Cinco de Mayo celebration, and that's due to our huge Latin population, Mexican population in particular. And finally, we also have a big 4th of July parade of Park Hill. That's kind of more of a Park Hill thing. North Park Hill is a little bit smaller and quite different, actually, but we do become a part of that as well. So here are some population characteristics of North Park Hill. So the total population is about 10,000 people. 9.4% of those are under 5 years old. Almost 22% are under 18, and about 15% are over 65. As far as poverty and income go, the average household income is about $111,000, and only about 11.5, almost 12% of people are in poverty. And I'll talk a little bit about this afterwards, but we'll notice the difference between the population statistics of North Park Hill and actually that of what we see at Smith Elementary. As far as education goes, in North Park Hill, for those people that are over 25 years old, only 12% haven't even had their high school education. About 14% have high school education only. 18% have a college, have been to college but don't have a degree, and then over 50% of our people of the population of North Park Hill actually has a bachelor's or master's degree. In North Park Hill, there are a total of 830 jobs available, and the unemployment rate in our area is only 4%. So this all sounds great, but if we take a look at the comparison to North Park Hill versus Smith Elementary, it's a little bit different. So I have these listed in greatest to least percentage. So in North Park Hill, we have 57% white, 30% African American, 11% Latino, and 2% are other. But then the shift kind of changes when you look at our building. We have 63% Latin, African Americans are at 30%, whites at 3%, and other is at 4%. And this is because we have a process that is called school choice or choice school, where you can choice into different schools in your district. And so if you are very diligent and do it early enough, you can potentially get into a school that you want to be in as opposed to your neighborhood school. So this is causing a lot of issues as far as our school goes. Of our 350 students, 110 of those, I believe, are in ECE. So we only have about 200 or so kids between kindergarten through fifth grade, which is not a lot. And it kind of changes the type of kids that we serve due to them not sending their kids to neighborhood schools. So some communication channels. Most of our families in the area use television, but mostly our local free channels because not many have cable anymore, especially with having access to the internet, which almost all have, even those who are on government assistance, they actually have subsidies that help be able to allow them to have access to the internet. So with that, they mostly use Netflix and Hulu and things like that, as opposed to watching, per se, cable. They also use the website. We have the district and a school website that many of our families use to reach communication. Social media as well. A lot of our parents get most of their information from our school Facebook or Twitter. And then finally, our newspaper or newsletters. So those are sent home by the school and then also by the individual classrooms to share communication as well. Some of our community groups, we have a Greater Park Hill Community Organization, and they are kind of known for as being like a problem-solving organization. So they often reach out to families or schools or just different stakeholders in the area and figure out what they feel like is working and what isn't working, and whether it be safety or crossing guards, or what is it that we need to make your school a better place to be. And so that's probably the biggest community group that we have access to. And I would say, just in my opinion, our school does not do an amazing job with community outreach. So it's definitely something that we need to work on. We also have the North Park Hill Church, and they actually borrow our school on Sundays to host their church and also Sunday school for some kids. We also have a non-formal Mexican mom group where the moms kind of band together and do different things for staff members on occasion, or like if we have a tragedy in the community, a death or something, they kind of band together to raise money to pay for different things, whether they all bring in food and cook and just things like that. We also have two rec centers in the area, the Martin Luther King Jr. Rec Center and the Hiawatha Rec Center, which is what houses our Boys and Girls Club. And those two groups, I would say over 50% of our students go to them after school because a lot of their parents work late. So we have a really good relationship with them. Oftentimes we get calls from the Boys and Girls Club asking us about like behaviors with kids and like what are we doing in school that works and what they can do and things like that. So I feel like with our rec groups and the Greater Park Hill Community Organization, we have a good relationship. But other than that, it doesn't go much farther. Some leaders in our area. So our Denver Public School Superintendent, we just got her, and her name is Susana Cordova. And then another big leader that we work pretty closely with is Michael Eaton, and he's our chief of safety. So if there's ever an issue in the building, we call safety and security, which in my building happens a lot. And he's the chief. So if he comes out, it's a big deal. And actually, we did have him come out a couple weeks ago because of a modified release that we had to do due to violence in the neighborhood. As far as our leaders at my building, we have our principal, Emily Almudafar, and we now have an assistant principal who will be starting next year, Meredith Brown. We also have our mayor of Denver, who's Michael Hancock, and he's a really important leader to our community because he is an African-American male, and he's a strong leader that they look up to. That's also different than our building because Emily Almudafar is a Caucasian woman who is leading a building of extremely diverse individuals, and so oftentimes that causes a little bit of turmoil or just cultural differences. One community leader that is really impactful to our community is Catherine Martinez, and she actually was the principal at Roots Elementary, which was a charter school down the street from us who just closed this year. And she has a very good connection to our community people and can often help us get information across to them if we think that it might be a little bit challenging or awkward per se. This is a little bit about the economic conditions in North Park Hill. So as far as land use goes, for multifamily units, we only have it's only about 2%. Almost everything is a single family home, and that's 98%. And public subsidy rental units, there's only 45 in North Park Hill. Labor and employment, we have a very low unemployment rate of only 4%, and the annual average wage is $86,375. I did add a little caveat there that says, despite these numbers, Smith Elementary population is very diverse from this. Our school serves students from extreme poverty. In fact, 98% of our students receive free or reduced school lunch pricing. So I think that this is primarily due to the fact that we have a homeless shelter. It's called the Denver Rescue Mission that is about 4 blocks away from our school. And we serve a lot of those students. In fact, just in my class of 20 students this year, 8 of them lived there. So it kind of changes the kiddos that we serve. And again, like I mentioned, most of the families that live in North Park Hill send their students to either Park Hill Elementary or Steck or Stedman or other schools around us that do not have as much poverty. As far as social tensions go, we do have some social media drama, but our kids are younger, and so it's mostly among the parents, which is always fun. But we do have a lot of gang violence issues where we have to close our school or put us on lockdown or lockout due to shootings in the neighborhood and things like that. And so that's when we kind of reach out to our community leader, Catherine, and say, hey, can you reach out to those others in our community and ask them to cease the violence so that school can finish? So it's kind of a weird situation, but gang violence is definitely something that is big and an issue in our area. And among our parents specifically. So we had to have the discussion of, if we have a lockout, do we take all the parents that are in our building and push them out, or do we do what normal lockout is and just shut our perimeter doors? But that becomes a safety issue because we could potentially be having gang rival members in our building and we're locking them in with our students. So not safe. We also have interracial confrontation between the African American and Hispanic communities. They just have a lot of cultural child rearing differences. They don't necessarily agree with the way that, or the Hispanic families don't necessarily agree with how the African American parents rear or raise their children. And so that often brings conflict. And then also there's a huge difference in parent involvement. We notice that our African American communities, often we don't see the parents until it's things like Halloween or fun activities, whereas our Hispanic families are there a lot more. But I also think it has to do with the amount of time they have to work. Our Hispanic families often are in our building have spouses that bring home money, and our African Americans, generally speaking, are often single moms on welfare that can't necessarily make it to all of these events that the other moms can. And finally, political opinion. We're currently working with an organization in the Greater Park Hill community where they poll families and teachers and community members in search of positive and negative feedback, and they're trying to make some big changes for us next year. And we want to mainly figure out, why do we have so little parent involvement or community involvement? So that's, I think, our number one thing. We're really trying to get out there in the community to make a difference in our students' lives, because we know that everything starts with our community, and if we're able to tap into those resources, we can really do some amazing things. Thank you.